Good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock, and I would definitely like to start the session right at 11 o'clock. As stated earlier, it's something, a principle that we would like to follow on our platform, that we start at the right time. And that's one of the biggest requests that we have been making to all the members of the We Learn community. I'm very happy to introduce today the speaker of the session, and she's a very good friend of mine and a colleague. Advocate Neelam George. I always call her as Neelam. And Neelam George is the owner of the Libra Associates. And to speak about it, it'll take a lot of time, and I do not want to, actually take a lot of time in her introduction, because the moment she starts talking about the subject, I'm sure you'll be able to have, the experience of her knowledge and her practical thoughts that she has been working on for so many years. But let me first briefly tell you that she is a commerce graduate, a postgraduate in commerce, and has done an LLM from Nagpur University. Very happy to say that she's a rank holder, third rank holder in LLB, as well as she has got an academic merit scholarship for a post-graduation. She has been a gold medalist in her taxation subject in LLB, and she's a member of the Bar Council of Maharashtra since 1988. You'll be happy to know that Neelam does not just practice, she has also been writing books, and she has written a book called How to Invest in House Property, which was published by Taxman Publications. She also has published 2 more books on consumer education through CRC Ahmedabad. And there has been a lot of other articles that she has written on law and legal procedure and home loans, which was published by Taxman. Neelam is just not a law graduate. She also has come with a lot of years of experience, almost 15 years of industry experience, having worked in housing finance with Group as a head of legal. And later on, she also moved on as a business manager in the retail branch. So when Neelam talks about her experience, her knowledge on this subject, you will be able to appreciate. Some of you who would have interacted with her will know that while she's very strong on the documentation, on the law, everything, but she's also very practical in her approach as to what could be done, what should not be done, and how you can safeguard the interest of your organization. And that has been very close to her heart. She has been practicing since 2005, and she's today, probably I would not able to count, as last she told me that she's on the panel of more than 200 banks and housing finance companies and NBFCs. She also helps a lot of developers in Vidarbha. She's based in Nagpur. Very keen at this point of time in her career. She says that, Kalyan, I would like to share my knowledge so that, it helps the people in the industry. She's very passionate about training and development. And that's one of the reasons why, she has come on here today and share her experience as well as her knowledge in this field. With that, I will stop over here, and I'll request Neelam George to take over, and I'll be helping Neelam to move to the slides as she continues speaking on the subject. Over to you, Neelam.
Thank you very much, Kalyan, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Virtue Skills session, and I will not take long in introduction. I am Neelam George, and I have 28 years of experience in housing finance industry, mortgage loans. 10 years I worked with Group Finance, and after that I've started my own consultancy. So total 28 years of experience, and registered with the Bar Council since 1989. So with this, we'll start this experience of 28 years and more, doing more than title reports. 1 lakh title reports has helped me to understand the nitty-gritties of entire documentation procedure and give this knowledge to the industry back, which has helped me and taken care of me for 28 years. This is the objective of this program. This is the objective of my writing, which I do. And we have to begin everywhere. We are nowhere without India. So Jai Hind and Bharat Mata Ki Jai. The India map is very critical for us and for our title verification procedure. We have to understand India and the property, where the property is in India. Only then we can work out our title verification procedure. when we are dealing with property, we have to understand India. How many states, how many districts, where is the property, and how is this property documentation managed by the government? So we have to understand the administrative structure of India. Because if we do not know the administrative structure, we are confused about why this document is required. So now let's look at the administrative structure of India. Now we know that India is now about 28 states and 8 union territories that we have. And most of the housing finance companies and most of the banks which are doing business all over India. Now the problem they are facing is that Maharashtra says one, Uttar Pradesh says second, Chennai, Tamil Nadu says three. So why these differences are there? To understand these differences, let's begin with the administrative structure. So we have states, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, West Bengal. Then we have union territories, and then we have the Parliament Government of India. So we have political Parliament at the center, and at the state we have the state legislatures. These states India is managed by the executive, which is the central government. State is managed by the state government. Then the third part we have the judiciary. Now let's see how the center is managed. Center we have the parliament managed by the executive head president. At the state we have governor and chief minister. The chief justice of the high court. At the district level we have the district collector. Then we have tehsil, they are also called blocks in certain areas, and then we have the district court. So this is how the administrative structure of India is: central, state and district. That's why our documentation and laws comes from 3 different heads. That how the law is different in Maharashtra for stamp duty and why the law is different for stamp duty in West Bengal. Whereas the Transfer of Property Act, which is a central law, is common all over India. Why the documentation is required, why any order is required, why building plan is required. So this executive head body, which manages the central government and the state government, which manages all the rules. Parliament makes the rules, but the rules are administered by the executive body. So we have to understand this executive body. Only then the salesperson will be able to understand that why I need a building plan, why I need a revenue record. For that, we have to understand the executive body, we have to understand the law. Mortgages, we are dealing with immovable property. So we must understand what is immovable property. This is a definition which I will not read, but immovable property is that which cannot be detached from the earth. And when we are dealing with the immovable property, it has to be specific immovable property. So that's why your technical report becomes extremely important. Sometimes I'm asked, Madam, you are a legal person, why are you asking for a technical report? I do the legal on the paper. Everything is on paper. But what is the property in existence? So my immovable property, how it is, does it match with the documents, is corroborated by your technical report, because ultimately you will be selling the physical property and not the paper. So you have to understand and see and verify what is your immovable property and what is its status. Now, as I explained to you, that administration of the property is largely done by the state government. The laws, some major laws are passed by the central government, but the administration of the property is done by the state government. So let's understand, every title document has to be registered, except a will where registration is not mandatory. Every title document has to be registered. We will see later what are the title documents. Where are they registered? So these title documents will be registered at the local city office or a local tehsil office, block office. So we must know that if my property is situated in Mumbai, so where will my document be registered? Which registrar office will have the record of my document? That I must identify. Otherwise, my search will go wrong. Now, registration of title documents is done under the Indian Registration Act, 1908. which is common all over India. It is a central law, but the law is central, but the registration procedure is local. So if it is in Mumbai, I must know in Mumbai which registrar office will register my document. If it is in Thane, I must know which registrar office will execute and register my document in Thane. The second part of it is non-agricultural use permission. This is the law is non-agricultural law is passed state-wise. Every state has its own law. Although the broad parameters are similar, but it's a state law. As I said, registration procedure is a central law, but non-agricultural use permission is a state law. So you must know which law, how the non-agricultural conversion law is in the state. But the order is passed by local district collector office. So again, the sales question is, madam, from where will I get my NA permission? So you have to check out at the district level office, collector. Sometimes this power is delegated to the tehsildar. But it is important that you must know which collector will issue the non-agricultural use permission. Now we will go to the revenue record. In different states is named in a different manner. Because issue of revenue record is again a state subject. In Maharashtra, a revenue record is called 712 extract. In Gujarat also largely it is called 712 extract. Commonly it is called property card. Revenue record means when a person buys a property, his name is recorded in the government records that so and so has purchased the property, white sale date dated so and so. This is recorded in the government records. That is called the revenue record. The name may vary from state to state, but the content is the same. Who's the present owner of the property? Who sold the property to whom? So that's why government records show that property is in so and so name. So it is important for us that we obtain the revenue record in the name of present owner of the property and link owner of the property. And since we do the search of 13 years or 30 years, we have to go back in the revenue record for 13 years and 30 years. Okay, we will come to that in detail in 13-year and 30-year search. The next part is building plan and permission. The question is, who will issue the building plan? Now in India, we have center, state and district. When we come down to the district is again divided into the main city headquarter, and then we have small tehsils or blocks around the city. So in the main city headquarter, it is a municipal corporation because a large city area. Now outside the city limits, we have small bodies called either Nagar Parishad or municipal council. Again, we have certain smaller villages where the building permission is issued by Gram Panchayat, the village panchayat. It is also called the village panchayat. So whichever dealing with, you have to, which body will issue the building plan and permission. Especially in rural areas, sometimes the property is situated in village A and the building plan is issued by village panchayat B. So you have to check out authorities, because if your building plan is not properly approved by competent authority, your mortgage is affected. So as I explained to you that how your laws are affected, why the laws are different, because property laws are passed by center, they are passed by state also, and there are certain concurrent matters where both center and state pass laws. So in the property matters, we have to understand that why my law is different from Uttar Pradesh and why my Registration Act and Transfer Property Act and SARFAESI Act are common. All over India, these acts are common, but Land Revenue Code, stamp duty, these are different. So you have to understand why. Otherwise, your lawyer of Uttar Pradesh will have a different opinion and lawyer of Karnataka will have a different opinion. So once we have understood these broad parameters, we will go into the nitty-gritties of title verification. Now we will see that the question is why title verification is required. I'm giving a mortgage loan, he's giving my property, his property, then why do I need a title verification? First, mortgage loan is a secured loan. Because mortgage loan rates are from 7% to 12 to 14% if it's a LAP loan. Purchase from 7% to 10%. LAP loans from say 10 to 14%. Now this rate of interest can be given only if your security is valid. Otherwise, personal loans start from 18, 20, 24, money lenders 36. So the fact that banks and financial institutions are able to lend at that rate is only because their loan is secured loan. In case of default, they can sell the property. Okay. Now, what is the security? Security for the loan is the property. So your property has to be clear and marketable and valid. Otherwise, the basis of giving a lower rate loan will not be applicable. So if the person defaults, your mortgage should be valid and you should have the right to sell the property. That's why title verification is required whether the mortgage is clear and marketable. Unencumbered, clear and marketable. We will look into these words also. What do they mean? Okay. So that's why legality of mortgage is primary requirement of enforcement. Otherwise, you will not be able to sell the property. Next, please. So as I explained, rate of interest is low. Now, not only the rate of interest, it is low. Since the rate of interest is low, there is a lot, these banks, where do they get these banks money from? Banks who lend for mortgage loans, for home loans, from where do they get the money? They get the money from public. Ultimately, it is public money. They do not grow money at home. They do not produce money at home. Whose money are they lending? They are lending public money. So when they are lending public money, they have to be regulated. So in case your security is not legal, the regulatory authorities will catch you. There are many companies where at the time, although the cases were not NPA, but when they sold their portfolio, a large chunk of their portfolio was not accepted as mortgage portfolio. So they got a lesser price for that portfolio. We have seen in our history that how companies are selling their portfolio. So at the time of selling their portfolio, there is an audit done. And audit, and even regular yearly basis also, NHB, RBI does the audit. So if the audit is reflected that the mortgage is not valid, it can affect the credibility of the company. So 3 reasons why the title has to be clear. Low rate of interest is there. You have to enforce your property. In case of NPA, you will be able to sell it only if the title is clear. Regulatory authority can come and audit your company records and check whether the mortgage is valid. And there will be penal action if your if your mortgage is not valid. At the time of selling your portfolio, again, if your mortgage is not valid, you will get a lower rate. The company will get a lower rate. Subsidies are also given by government. So this is the reason why a title verification is required, whether my title is clear and marketable. Next, please. So to see whether the property is clear and marketable, we have to do a search of 13 years or 30 years. Most of the nationalized banks do a search of 30 years and private institutions normally do a search of 13 years. The question is, why this difference? Why 13 years and why 30 years? This is a very important question. Now if we see, as per the Indian Limitation Act 1963, if there is a dispute pending regarding a property, the case has to be filed within 12 years. Again, I repeat, if there is a dispute, the case has to be filed within 12 years. So, financial institutions for better business, they have taken a decision of doing a 13-year search. But in case the property is ancestral property and a minor has a right in the property, suppose on the day of dispute a minor is born, so he will get 18 till he becomes 18 plus 12, 30 years. So that is the reason in ancestral property, 30 years search becomes mandatory because a minor may have a claim in the property. And several such cases are pending in courts. Recently, just 3 days back, Nagpur District Court has admitted a claim of a minor after 42 years. After 42 years, the famous developer had purchased the property, and after when the person came to know that this property has been sold. After 42 years, the case has been admitted on the ground that minor didn't know about the dispute. The ground taken is from the knowledge 12 years will be counted. So he came to know when the big developer purchased the property that this property belonged to me because it was published in the newspaper. He didn't even know that that property belonged to him. So we cannot take this limitation period lightly. They have admitted it after 42 years. The property is worth 23 crores today. Okay. Now, the borrower can... Why title clear of the borrower is required? Because your mortgage will be valid only if his title is clear. If I do not have 1 lakh rupees, I cannot give you 1 lakh rupees. If I do not have title clear, I cannot give you title clear. So that is the reason a title clear will be valid. He can give you a clear title because mortgage is transfer of interest in property. I can transfer my interest if it is clear. If it is not clear, I cannot transfer a clear interest to you. So after we do the search of sub-registrar office, revenue record, title documents, after we do this search, we issue a title report that, okay, the title is clear and marketable. But read the report very carefully. There will be so many ifs and buts. Take an affidavit, take an indemnity, take this document, take that document. So you will be able to bind the advocate only if you have done what is written in the title report. We will come to it, especially in balance transfer, PDD cases, PDD documents. All that is valid, and how to handle it. We may take it in future sessions also to how to go into the nitty-gritties of the title report. Now, I've given you the introduction. Let's look at the 5 wives and 1 husband formula and purchase of property. You will find this from sales point of view, very specific. And you will be able to understand better what I've talked previously. Okay, next please. Whenever a salesperson gets a call, sir, I want a loan. So the first question is asked is, where is the property situated? Because that is most critical. If we take we'll take an example of Mumbai, Kalyan. If you can help me with the Mumbai location. I will take Mumbai because people are from various backgrounds and most of us know Mumbai. So where is the property situated is a very, very critical question. So unless I know where the property is situated, I will not know which body will issue the necessary permissions where the document will be registered. The second question is whether the property is freehold or leasehold. Because if it is freehold means I am the owner of the property. No permission is required. If it is leasehold, then permission for sale and transfer is mandatory. The next question is, who is the owner of the property? Very critical question, because if we do not know who is the present owner of the property, we will not know who will sign the title documents, who will sign the mortgage deed, who will sign the sale deed. You have to identify who is the owner of the property. Then what is the type of the property? Type of property means whether it's a plot, whether it's a house or a flat. We have to identify the type of property. Next please. So now let's go into the detail of where is the property situated. If we try to identify a property of Mumbai, Mumbai is situated in Maharashtra. Maharashtra is situated in India. So we begin from India, Maharashtra, Mumbai. In Mumbai where? Suppose we take Goregaon. Now my property is in India, Maharashtra, Mumbai, Goregaon. So my document will be registered in the local Goregaon registrar office. My building plan will be issued by local Bombay Municipal Corporation. My NA order will be issued by Government of Maharashtra. My revenue record will be issued by the City Survey Office of Mumbai. That revenue record is called property card. So these are the things which affect my property depending on the location. So whenever you are handling a property, ask these questions. Where is my property situated? Only then you will get the answers. Who will issue which permission? Even in most of the title formats, there is a question. Which is the body regularizing, managing the property? So that will be the local municipal corporation or a local municipal council. It is within that limits. Because my building plan will be issued by that body. Next, please. Now, whether the property is freehold or leasehold. In freehold property means I am the owner of the property. I do not need any permission of anybody to sell or mortgage the property. Of course, building plan, revenue record, all that is required. But if I want to sell the property, if I want to mortgage the property, I do not need any permission. That is freehold property. And leasehold property is there is a lease deed of a government body, and if you want to sell or mortgage that property, you have to get the permission of the leasehold, the lesser body. Okay, like we have seen most of the development boards. Housing boards are there in all the states of India. So if you are financing a housing board property, you have to get the NOC for sale and NOC for mortgage from the housing board. You cannot mortgage the housing board property without the permission of the housing board. And if you do it, if you do not take the NOC of the housing board, then you will not be able to sell the property in SARFAESI Act. So it is very critical to, and there's a question in your title report, whether the property is freehold or leasehold. And the advocate has to answer it specifically. And whether any NOC is required, yes or no, whether before disbursement or after disbursement. That is a technical aspect, but it is required. And there is a case in Nagpur where it was a leasehold property and the bank had not obtained NOC from the lesser body. And when they wanted to sell it in SARFAESI, the stay was brought that this property cannot be sold. So it is very critical to know whether my property is freehold and leasehold and which permission is required. Not only that, whether the lease is valid. Because if the lease has expired, your mortgage is not valid. When the lease has expired means lessee is no longer the owner of the property, then he cannot mortgage the property. So my advice, do not touch expired lease deed cases. They will have a lot of problem in SARFAESI Act, and if the government acquires the property, you will not get a single rupee of compensation in expired lease cases. So take care in handling leasehold property. Now the question is, how do I know just from the documents that this is leasehold property? Sometimes the owner does not give you a copy of the lease deed also. Especially in smaller towns, really all the linked documents don't come. So when you check the revenue record, there will be an entry that who is the original owner of the property. So the revenue record will tell you that this is a leasehold property. Suppose it's a housing board property, that name will be written as original owner housing board. So always check the revenue record to find out whether this is leasehold property. Sometimes they goof up in the history. They may not mention it in the history, but they cannot hide the revenue record, but because that is a government document. Next, please. Now, very critical question, that who is the owner of the property? Except in resale cases and first purchase from the builder, the owner has to become a co-borrower or a guarantor, because who can mortgage the property? Only the owner can mortgage the property. In resale cases, the sale deed will be executed in the name of purchaser, who will become your borrower. In first builder purchase, the builder will execute an agreement in favor of the purchaser, who will become your borrower. So you have to identify who is the owner of the property. In case of leasehold property, it is lesser and lessee body. So lessee is also owner of the property and he becomes your borrower. Why this is very important? Because who will create the mortgage? The owner of the property. Now in cases, sometimes, especially in ancestral property, the title document is in the name of the father. and the son is working, so it is login is done in the name of son because his income is considered. So the father has to become a co-borrower. Sometimes the file will come in the name of son. We'll take an example of, say, Rajiv Sharma, and property is in the name of Ram Sharma. So Ram Sharma will have to become a co-borrower. So make sure that you ask that Ram Sharma will join as a co-borrower. Sometimes at the time of disbursement, we come to know that Ram Sharma has expired. So whenever there is a login, you have to find out login is in the name of son and the property is in the name of the father. The father will have to join as co-borrower. Sometimes the owner of the property is a minor. We have to check it out. I will come to the minor problem cases later. If there's a minor is the owner of the property, that property cannot be mortgaged without the permission of the court. So you have to identify who is the owner and whether he can join as a co-borrower, because minor cannot become your co-borrower. Not only that, there are cases where co-owner, there are two brothers. One brother has logged in and file is in his name. Say we'll take Siddharth Roy has logged in. And he has a younger brother who is Rajesh Roy. Now Rajesh Roy is of unsound mind. He is owner of the property, co-owner in the property, but of unsound mind. You cannot make an unsound person your co-borrower. And how will you identify that he is of unsound mind? That's why your what is called RCU and personal meetings are important. Whether the owner of the property can really sign the document. On paper, who's the owner of the property? Physically, it has to be checked who's the owner of the property, and when the owner of property can they become a co-borrower. We had done a case where when we went to take signature on the loan documents, the owner of the property was a lady and she was sick on the bed and she could not sign the loan documents. We had to deny the case. We went to the house. They said she's not well. So we said, okay, we will go and hand over the check at home. But she was so sick that she could not even raise her head. So how can we make a person owner of the property a borrower who does not even know what she's doing? There can be an unsound person. When you physically see them, you see, oh, he is unsound. He cannot sign the loan documents. In such cases, permission of court is required. That's why your RCU becomes very, very important. Okay, next please. Now this we have been talking about individuals, but sometimes owner of the property is a partnership firm. In such cases, all partners take them as co-borrowers. Do not deal with only one partner. Take a partnership deed copy and join all the partners, see their audit report, see their balance sheet, who are the partners, and join all of them. Partnership deeds, they keep changing the partnership deed also. So track it out how the partners have come in and how they've gone out. Your credit appraisal also becomes very important in partnership firm cases. Then we have property owned by private limited and public limited companies. When the property is owned by private limited and public limited company, a company is formed under the Act and you have to do a registrar of companies which is called ROC search. Not only regular search at the sub-registrar office, but ROC search. Now ROC search is on the website. Every state has a separate website for ROC search of the companies. So in case the property is owned by a company, you have to do a ROC search. Who is the director of the company? Where is the head office of the company? What loans they have taken? What is their balance sheet? This analysis has to be done. Even in when the company is a borrower or even when company is a vendor or a builder. So again, owner of the company, the KYC norms, the KYC documents of the owner are very, very critical aspect. If you go wrong on the ownership and KYC documents, our mortgage can become invalid. Next, please. What is the type of the property? Normal type, Mumbai is largely flats, but in other districts, other areas, we get open plot, we get bungalows, we get tenements of housing boards. Slightly, there is a document. In open plot, you will not require building plan and permit, but in other types of property, we will need a building plan and permit. So that's why the technical report becomes critical, that what is the type of the property. If there is construction, you need a building permit. Okay. Here I'll give you a example. In Nagpur area, we have open plot lap cases. Loan against property against a plot. So the plot was financed and legal was clear. Open plot, on paper it was open plot everywhere. When the technical report came, there was a temple on the plot. We never asked for building plan permit because it was an open plot case, but the plot had a temple. Now, in case of SARFAESI, it will become very difficult to sell that property which has a temple. Purchaser may not want the temple, and he cannot demolish because area will not allow him to demolish, area people. So you have to be extremely careful when you are doing. That's why we say that physical technical verification is very, very important. Documents are all saying plot, but on site there is a temple that he is mortgaging. In case of SARFAESI, you will not be able to sell it. One more case, house. Mortgage loan, house, constructed house, building plan is there, building permit, everything is there. Revenue record, total title clear. When the physical verification was done, the person had buried the bodies of his parents and grandparents in the compound of the house. There were graves, dead bodies, graves in the compound of the house. Legally it is clear, but marketable? Will you be able to sell a property which has dead body graves in the compound? That will affect. So that's why we insist on technical report. Make videos, take photographs, assess the property, take a feel of it. The type of property and technical report becomes extremely important. Please do not bypass it in any cases, because legal will only give on paper what it is, but physical will give you really what the property is. Next, please. What is the usage of the property? Now, as we all know that SARFAESI Act does not apply to agricultural land. In case the agricultural land, you have to go through the regular registered mortgage procedure, regular court procedure. But in SARFAESI Act, regular non-agricultural use permissions are not available. But whatever policy decisions are taken by the financial institution, it is important that the non-agricultural use permission is obtained. Usage has to be non-agricultural. In the non-agricultural also, there is a breakup. There is residential, commercial and industrial. If the non-agricultural use permission is for residential purpose, the property cannot be used for commercial purpose. If your building plan is residential, the property cannot be used for a commercial purpose. There cannot be a shop in a residential building. All the things are there, but it can affect your saleability of the property. Suppose you are financing a shop in a residential building with a residential building plan, then give a residential rate also. Do not give it a commercial rate. Because if you are giving a commercial rate valuation, then the building plan has to be commercial sanction. Again, industrial. Residential, people purchase big lands, huge lands, obtain NA order for residential and make an industry over there. This will affect the saleability of the property. That industry can anytime be acquired or demolished by the government body in case of any complaints by residents. Because industry, there will be so many other environmental violations and issues. So whatever is the NA order, it is for residential, consider residential. Commercial, commercial. Industrial, industrial. Especially in industries, do not bypass because there will be many environmental issues in industrial usage of the property. Next, please. So I have explained the usage of the property, how the violations affect. And government is very, very particular about industrial usages. Many penal actions have been taken against industries on residential land. So take care when you're financing industrial property. Now the ultimate question, that how will the property be purchased? What are the types of transactions that we have is normal regular big cities is new flat purchase from builder. Then we have a resale flat purchase. We have new plot purchase in a layout. Then resale plot, self-construction. Then resale of house. These are the various, you may have other permutations and combinations also, but these are broad permutations and combinations of types of transaction. And how will I acquire it? In case it's a flat purchase from builder, what documents are required from the builder? What document is required before disbursement? Which document is required after disbursement? So these are the questions in every transaction, whether it is a vendor BT case, is there a project finance? Is there an existing loan on the property? Unless we know these nitty-gritties, we will not able to, the title is clear, but are we able to hand over the check to the borrower and complete our disbursement? Next, please. So as I told you, your original document, which document is required? Original, which document copy? Which document before disbursement, which after disbursement? When the check will be handed over? Here I will give you an example. I'm on the panel of various institutions. So sometimes borrowers approach, madam, please execute our sale deed also. So I said, okay, fine, I will execute your sale deed. So everything was done, sale deed was executed, and the bank was supposed to hand over the check. It was a resale house case. Bank was supposed to hand over the check to the vendor. We executed the sale deed, submitted the sale deed in the bank, original sale deed. The bank did not hand over the check, saying that your 1, 2, 3 documents are pending, so we cannot hand over the check to you. The vendor went to the police station, filed a complaint against me and my assistant that these people have executed a sale deed and the bank is not handing over the check to us. So make sure that all the documents that you need are there before disbursement. And it is after disbursement, your vendor purchaser know, and you take it in writing that they will submit this after disbursement. Sometimes checks are pending with the bank for 3 months and 4 months. Checks are not handed over because XYZ documents are pending, and the borrower keeps on paying the interest. Then there's a dispute. Then there's a police case. Then there's a consumer court. So this procedure of 1, 2, 3 checklist, what documents are required, is extremely important. Parameters of property. Now we will see that what parameters of property needs to be captured. I will not go into details of that. In the recording or in uploading, Kalyan sir can give you the details also again. Just look at the screen. There are basically 3 types of property: bungalow, plot and flat. So we must capture all the details of the property, and it may not be in one document. We have to analyze all the documents. I'll just take this broadly. Facing, how many floors are there, built up area, super built up area, carpet area, layout, plot number, admeasuring area of land in square meters, square feet. PH number is one classification of Maharashtra. Khasra number is survey number. Then sheet number, ward number, house number, Mauza is village, Tehsil, district. Take postal address also. We make a mistake of not taking the postal address, because at the revenue address with survey number, the letter will not reach. Take the postal address and pin code and boundaries. Pin code and boundaries and postal address is extremely important, because your letter will not reach on survey number and house number. It will reach on postal address. Sometimes the revenue address, there's a vast difference in revenue address and postal address. I can give example of Nagpur, because I'm more familiar with Nagpur. There is a famous area in Nagpur called Dharampet. It's the posh area and the prime area of Nagpur. But it is called Dharampet area. Everybody in Nagpur knows it. But on paper, that is called village Gadga. Nobody knows. So if your letter goes in village Gadga, it will never reach. You must have the revenue record, sale deed address is village Gadga, but the postal address is Dharampet. So please make sure that your postal address is correct. Bombay, immense, you will get such names of villages you will never even imagine, but the postal address is different. So make sure that you take the postal address of the property. Similarly, there is plot and similarly there is flat. Capture all the details from all the title documents and take the postal address and pin code. And you make sure that your technical report address and your legal address matches. Sometimes it happens is that your address in the legal report, your admeasuring area in the legal report and your admeasuring area in the technical report is different. It had happened with me. In technical report, the area was double, and in my legal, the area was 50%. So please check out your technical and legal both, because see, you will be selling the physical property. Again, I'm repeating, you will not be selling your paper. Modes of transfer. Now, whenever we are talking about transfer of property, the sales people always say, Madam, they are mortgaging the property. They are not transferring the property. Please understand that mortgage is also a type of transfer. Now, as per the Transfer of Property Act, as I explained to you, that is a central law and it is 1882. How many? Almost 150 years. Britishers had passed this law, Transfer of Property, and we are still working on it. We still, day in, day out, we work on modes of transfer of property. Sale is normal. A sells to B is a sale of property. Mortgage. A takes loan from ICICI Bank and mortgages the property. That is mortgage. Lease. Housing board give a property on lease to the individuals. That is lease property. Exchange. Exchange means I have flat number 1. A has flat number 1. B has flat number 2. Both exchange the flats. That is called exchange deed. That is also a transfer of property. Gift, all of you are familiar. Father gives a gift of property to son. It's a gift deed. That is also transfer of property. Actionable claim. Actionable claim means the case is filed in the court regarding the property. And A says, okay, I transfer my entire claim. If I win, you will take the entire money. So transfer of actionable claim is also a form. Sometimes in disputed cases, there is a sale deed. In that it is mentioned that the claim on this property is also transferred to you. Operation of law. Operation of law means inherited by will. Person inherits a property. That is, by operation of law, he has become owner. Hindu Succession Act. Father dies, wife and children become owner of the property. So this is by operation of law. Conversion of entity. Suppose there is a partnership firm. From a partnership firm, they convert the status to a limited company. They they form a company. So they do not have to execute a sale deed for that. It is by operation of law that the partnership firm has become a company. Now, there is a company which has so many shareholders. So company dissolves. All the shareholders become owner of the property. So they don't have to execute a sale deed for that. By dissolution, they become the owner of the property. So these are the various modes. All are transfer of property. So we have to understand that by which mode the person has become owner. When in SARFAESI Act, suppose one bank sells the property. How do they have the right to sell the property? Because they are the mortgagee of the property. That's why they have a right to sell the property. Next. Now, title deeds is one thing, day in and day out, this word. All the mortgage professionals only hear this one word, title document. Now, what is a title document? I have listed some major types of title documents. In different states, something else can also crop up, but let's look at it. Sale deed, we all know, is common. Sale deed is a title document. When A sells property to B, he executes a sale deed and goes and registers the document. That is called a sale deed. Agreement to sale. In certain cases, like builder cases, builder executes an agreement for sale in favor of purchaser. So that agreement to sale is also a title document. In certain individual cases, also people for like vendor BT, vendor balance transfer. Again, we'll take an example, vendor BT cases. Suppose Neelam George has a property in Nagpur and there is a loan of Axis Bank. Neelam George wants to sell the property to Manjula. Now Manjula wants to purchase the property, but they will enter into an agreement first that first you close the loan of Axis Bank and then I will purchase the property. This agreement, then agreement to sale is executed, loan is closed, then the sale deed is executed. So agreement to sale and sale deed both will become title document. Now other documents are allotment letter. Builder gives an allotment letter. Housing boards give an allotment letter. So the allotment letter is also a title document. Cooperative societies give allotment letter and share certificate. Builders give a possession letter. Gift deed, I've discussed father to son, mother to son, relations, gift deed. Will we all know parents, any owner of property can execute a will in favor of his children, whoever, and that will is valid only after the death of the executed. Till the person is alive, will is not valid. Partition deed, common ownership property of two and more people, so they may execute a partition deed. Okay, north portion you take and south portion I will take. This also document has to be registered. Exchange deed I explained, lease deed. Now sanad. Sanad is also called a government order. Commonly I would say it's a government. For example, when in 1947 when people came from Pakistan to India, so they were allotted properties. The government did not execute. It was not possible for government to execute sale deed in favor of each person. So they issued an order or a letter. Okay, this house number 1 belongs to Mr. Kapoor. House number 2 belongs to Mr. Verma. This happened in North India largely. Nagpur also, till Central India, many cases of refugee property, they were just allotted properties. Government did not execute sale deeds. So that order is called sanad. Sanad means order of the government. And we will later, if time permits, we will go into how these refugee properties are being handled now. Then by sanad, he has become the owner. Government has given that property to the person. Now whether NOC is required or not is to be seen from the conditions of the order. Then housing board documents. Housing board documents are allotment letter, possession letter, NOC for mortgage. These are housing board documents, and sometimes housing board executes a lease deed also, sale deeds also. So you have to check what are the housing board documents. NOC mortgage is issued by various lesser authorities, leasehold bodies are also part of title document. Then revenue record. Revenue record, as I explained, the document gives you who the ownership. Acquired molding is ownership by document, but the revenue record certifies in government record that so and so is the owner of the property. So revenue record is also a title document. Now, since I explained you what are the types of title document, I'll try to give you 2-3 cases. The affidavit of the witness that this hiba was given before me. Only then the hiba is valid. And on the basis of hiba and the affidavit of 2 witnesses, the name will be recorded in the revenue record. So I had a case, a hiba case came, and I said, I want a hiba. I want an affidavit that before witness, that hiba was given before the witnesses. So affidavit came in 22. The affidavit said that I, ABC, aged about 30 years, declare that hiba was given by the president in my presence in 2005. Now in 22, when he is 30 years, in 2005 his age was 13 years. A 13-year-old person cannot become witness to a hiba. So we said that this affidavit is false. And surprising part was that the notary had also notarized the affidavit. a 30-year-old man is saying that I was witness to this hiba in 2005 and so it is valid. So we rejected the case saying that this affidavit is false. So here we have two aspects in this case. Hiba, the witness affidavit is false, and notary is also certifying that it is affidavit is clear. So we can practically take a criminal case against the witness. Next, please. So this case was rejected on the ground. Then the DSA asked me, can I give a personal loan? We said no, the person who is giving a false affidavit, we should not even consider a personal loan. Because here the credit aspect comes in. Next, please. Now, gift deed I explained. Typical case of a will. There was a retired police commissioner. He executed a will in favor of his son. And the son was also a director of a school. We are talking about the most elite people of India. Police commissioner executing a will in favor of his son, who is a director of a school. And the property was bequeathed to his son, but the son became witness to the will. Now, witness cannot be a person in whose favor the will is, the property is bequeathed. There has to be two other witnesses. Yeah. Will is executed by father in favor of son, and son has become witness to the will also. Now this will not be valid, and the will is under, even if it was registered, we cannot consider, because the person to whom the property is bequeathed cannot become witness to the will. Now, fortunately, his relations with the sister were like good. So sister agreed to execute a will. Sister was in Hyderabad and brother was in Nagpur. It was not possible for sister to come from Hyderabad to Nagpur. So what we suggested, that the brother goes to Hyderabad, takes a power of attorney from the sister, she signs the relinquishment deed at Hyderabad, and he admits. So in this case study, what we saw, three documents: a will, a relinquishment deed, and a power. And how we worked it out. The brother went to Hyderabad, she executed a will, and she executed a power of attorney on the basis of power, and she signed the relinquishment deed at Hyderabad. On the basis of power of attorney at Hyderabad and relinquishment deed signed at Hyderabad, he came and registered the relinquishment deed at Nagpur. And for your information, the stamp duty across India between brother and sister relationship is very normal, 100 or 500 rupees. So in this case, we could transfer the property in the favor of the person whose will was actually not clear. But in this case, all three will become title documents: will, power of attorney, and relinquishment deed. Okay, the brother asked me this question, that if I have a power of attorney, why do I need a relinquishment deed? So the answer we gave was that if the sister dies, the power of attorney will stand cancelled. Then he will need the power from her husband and children. So this aspect also will take, if time permits, that what is the validity of power of attorney if the executant dies? Power of attorney becomes invalid. Okay, next please. Second. Now, I gave you a complete list of title documents, but there are several other title documents like power of attorney, family arrangements, memorandum of understanding, deeds, which are all part of your title document procedure. And you have to analyze how the final title has come in last 13 years, 30 years, wherever required. Especially in builder cases, ancestral property, you have to go back up to 30 years. Now we will look at this case. There was a landowner, Rajesh Singh, who executed power of attorney in favor of the developer Aarti Construction in the year 2000. Mark the years very, very carefully. In the year 2000, he executed a power of attorney in favor of a developer and gave him absolute rights to sell the property. Aarti Construction gave full consideration payment to Rajesh Singh. Full amount was paid. The sale deed for the property was executed by the power of attorney holder, Aarti Construction. Next, please. Next slide, please. Kalyan sir, next slide. Now, power of attorney was given in 2000. He received full money. The sale deed was executed in the year 2010. On the basis of power of attorney, the Aarti Construction executed a sale deed. At the time of sale deed, Rajesh Singh was not alive. And this was mentioned in the sale deed that Rajesh Singh has expired. So the legal has challenged the sale deed on two grounds. One, the executant of power of attorney has expired. So they do not have a right to sell the property. And second, legal heirs were females also. So only brother's right was not there, female right is also there. Because amendment in the Hindu Succession Act 2000. So a power was given in 2000. Things changed because 2005 the females also acquired the property. The person died, so now brothers and sisters all have a right in the property. So we said that remedy was to obtain declaration from the court for confirmation of sale deed. Now what does the developer do who has executed a sale deed in 2010? Legal heirs, brothers and sisters, we confirm it as the father. For that, of course, for taking this consent, they had to give about 1 crore per. So in ancestral property cases, now you have to be very careful that where are female rights involved. Not executant is alive or not, because remember a power of attorney is not reflected in the power of attorney. So very carefully that the power of attorney is valid. Take a declaration, take an affidavit. Okay, next please. Yeah. So we have taken some cases of will, power of attorney, hiba, relinquishment deed. So these are the documents we have to understand that they are all become my part of title documents. Now revenue records, I explained to you that why it's important, because the sale deed is between two people. Suppose I say I have sold my property called Taj Mahal. Now deed I can write anything, but whether that sale deed, that property exists or not, that will be verified by the revenue department. Whether the vendor name is there in revenue record, whether the previous vendor name is there in revenue record. And you must know that registrar is not responsible for any mistake in your title deed. He is not responsible. His job is to register the document. Only because he has registered the document, so it is valid, is not correct. Unless the name is mutated in the revenue record. And vice versa also. Name is in the revenue record and there is no title document. That can also be challenged, especially in partition deed cases. There is an unregistered partition deed between two brothers. And in the revenue record. But the partition deed is not registered. Third brother can get up and say this partition deed is not registered and he can apply for cancellation of the revenue record. So, sale deed and revenue record are like husband and wife. We need both. Otherwise, the generation will not go ahead. So sale deed has to be valid, revenue record has to be valid. We need both. Only revenue record is there, sale deed is not there, there's a problem. Except in ancestral property, then you'll have to think about registered mortgage, no sale deed available. But those kind of credit approvals have to be taken. Tax receipt is a revenue document for the government. The property, so this is you have to pay. But tax receipt by document complete for a valid mortgage. So, madam, tax receipt is there, so it is valid. That's a revenue record. Fine. It's a financial revenue record, not a title revenue record. Title revenue record is your property card. Assessment record. Sometimes before receipt is issued, government issues an assessment that this is the valuation of the property and this is the tax payable. So that is the assessment record. Now this is the definition of what is a mortgage. Technically, I will not read every word, but mortgage is transfer of interest in specific immovable property. Mark the words specific for the purpose of securing the payment of money advance. For what? I have taken a loan from you. I will repay the amount to you. So I am mortgaging the property. Okay. But the property has to be specific immovable property. So if the property is not specific, your mortgage will be affected. My flat in that building, which flat? Flat number has to be there. There can be many flats. Next, please. Now, as per the Transfer of Property Act, these are the various types of mortgage. I will take one number, simple mortgage, and 5 number, mortgage by deposit of title deed. The rest are normally not done in India now. Earlier, it used to be done. But simple mortgage and mortgage by deposit of title deeds, which we do. Okay. So next screen, please. Next, please. Before that, when I said mortgage by deposit of title deeds means your equitable mortgage. It has 3 important ingredients. There has to be a loan. One, there has to be a loan. Second, constructive delivery means the title documents has to be physically given to a financial institution. An intention that I am giving the documents to you for the purpose repayment of my loan. These 3 are most important aspects of a equitable mortgage. Now, in the last 10 years, equitable mortgage registration procedure has become rampant, and the people, financial institutions are doing it. Laws have been, but 10 years earlier, equitable mortgage means just giving the document to the bank. They would not even issue a list of document to you, because even that would attract stamp duty. Earlier, equitable mortgage had no stamp duty. Now there are stamp duty. If you register the document, if you write the equitable mortgage document, there is a stamp duty. But if you don't write, there was no stamp duty. Certain states in India even still have equitable mortgage without stamp duty. But Maharashtra, they have made it compulsory. Registration of equitable mortgage since 2013, there's a stamp duty applicable. So the documentation procedure is, but the content are 3. That there has to be a loan, there has to be handover of documents, and the intention to create mortgage. In states like Maharashtra, it has to be registered now. Okay. Next. These ingredients of equitable mortgage was highlighted by Supreme Court in this particular case. That's the reason almost till 10 years, till 2010, equitable mortgage was executed without any stamp duty. Why the registration procedure has come in? So that the multiple funding avoided. So it led to a lot of multiple funding also due to loss of document. You would not know whether property is mortgage or not. So to avoid multiple funding, equitable registration of equitable mortgage procedure has been introduced. And CERSAI has come into picture where all the mortgages banks have to register. So these things have come up. That's why registration of intimation of equitable mortgage has become mandatory in some states. All states still does not become mandatory. So in whichever state you are, check with your lawyer whether registration of equitable mortgage is mandatory or not mandatory. What is the stamp duty? What is the registration charges? It varies from state to state. It is not same in every state. State to state it varies. Okay. Next, please. This is a document called Memorandum of Entry. Now, most of the private sector banks and private sector financial institutions just give a document that these are the documents deposited, and they do the registration of equitable mortgage with the SRO. They do not execute a mortgage document along with it. But nationalized banks mostly execute a memorandum of entry. Memorandum of entry means that owner of the property, borrower so-and-so visited our office on so-and-so date and has handed over the documents to the bank. This is in connection with the ingredient of intention to mortgage. So they record this. We see there is so if equitable mortgage, if written, the moment you prepare a memorandum of entry, stamp duty is applicable. Memorandum of entry is prepared by nationalized banks. Private banks just prepare a list of documents and attach to the intimation to the registrar office. But this document will come in some cases. Sometimes you will get in vendor BT cases memorandum of entry, in which even the list of documents will become a part of memorandum of entry. So there are two types. One is the customer gives a letter, that letter evidencing deposit of title deed, that I have deposited the title deeds to you. That is the customer gives, borrower gives. The second is memorandum of entry, the bank writes, you have come and deposited the title deeds in my office. Both are same, and both are evidence of deposit of title deeds. Both are intention to create equitable mortgage. Okay? Now here I'll give an example. Person A had taken a loan from a bank, and in that bank he deposited the title deeds in the locker. But there was no memorandum of entry. So bank wanted to enforce the mortgage. So he said, I have deposited my title deeds with you, but there was no intention to create the mortgage. I have kept it in your locker, and that is my personal locker. So you cannot hold my documents for my loan. So that is the reason intention is important. Okay? Next, please. Now, charge noting in revenue. As I explained to you, that revenue record is your control, government control. So most of the nationalized banks, when you create a mortgage, they record a charge in the revenue records, property card. Suppose you take a loan from Bank of India. Mr. A takes a loan from Bank of India. Equitable mortgage intimation is done. But on the basis of that also, they can go and record a charge in the revenue record. Now, once this charge is recorded, any person who searches with, okay, this person has taken a loan, which will be reflected in SRO, sub-registrar office if registered. Even if not registered, the revenue record will show that the loan on the property. The loan, the search of last 13 years, 30 years revenue records also, that is there any charge noted? Especially in agricultural land, you will find charge noting in revenue records. Okay. Next, please. Now, who should deposit the title deeds? Who can create a mortgage? Owner of the property. In resale cases, vendor BT cases, the borrower purchaser of the property. Next, please. Now, in builder cases, there is an agreement to sale. Transfer deed or conveyance deed is not done. So, in builder cases, you have to get NOC mortgage from the builder. In leasehold land also, you have to get NOC mortgage from the lessor. Next, please. Now, this is a very important point. We said mortgage by deposit of title deeds. Up to last 10 years in Maharashtra, it was not registered. Today, even also so there are some states where equitable mortgage is not registered. So one clause government has highlighted is that it can be created only in the district headquarter of a notified town. That means, if I give an example of Ghaziabad, I don't know from where, I'll take Mumbai. Mumbai will be better. If I take example of Mumbai, so it can be created only in the area which is under the Bombay Municipal Corporation area. If it is rural area, it cannot be created. So then in the loan agreement, we have to write address, this loan agreement is executed at Mumbai. If it is rural area, it cannot be equitable mortgage cannot be executed in rural area. I'll take a smaller town, Nagpur example I will take you. Nagpur district has 14 tehsils or 14 blocks. But the headquarter is Nagpur city. There are smaller towns smaller village tehsils like Kamti. Now if the document equitable mortgage is created at Kamti, it cannot be done. It can be done only in district headquarter. So make sure that your equitable mortgage is created at district headquarter, which is a notified town. And this list you will get from the collector office of your district. So whenever you start a business in a new district, take the notification whether equitable mortgage can be created at this district. I'll give you an example. There is a district in Maharashtra called Gondia, which was not a notified town. And finance companies were financing in Gondia. So there is a format, there is a clause that whether equitable mortgage can be created. So we had to write, no, you have created Nagpur, not Gondia. Later on, a notification was issued and Gondia was included as a notified town. If your equitable mortgage is created in a town which is not a notified town, your equitable mortgage will be invalid. Now the question is why this is done? Why this notified town? Remember this Transfer of Property Act is of 1882. And you imagine a scene in say 1900, somebody wants to give his title deed and take a loan. That man would not be aware, the villagers. So they said, no, you go and register it, do a proper registered mortgage. Do not do equitable mortgage with people who don't know how to deal with their original documents. So district headquarters is a place where advocate will come, certain procedures are followed. Otherwise, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night, you will create a equitable mortgage in a village. So all those films of zamindars and mortgage and property are all based on because villagers used to give their documents at night and take money. Now they have introduced agricultural land, still it has to be registered mortgage. Equitable mortgage only in a notified town. In a not notified town, you cannot do equitable mortgage. This is a critical point. When new companies are framing their policy, please check out that your equitable mortgage is created in notified town. Next, please. Now, as I said, intention of mortgage. Equitable mortgage content is deposit of title deeds, notified town. Intention. There has to be intention. Now, how will your intention be reflected? So, your application form, you issue check in the name, authority to issue check in favor of so and so. All this reflect your intention. Now, I'll give you an example here. We had an application form that is your title clear? Yes, no. Do you want to mortgage the? Yes, no. The person had marked no. That means he does not want to mortgage the property. So even read the application form carefully what he has filled in. He does not want to mortgage his property. He said no. So his intention is reflected from his application form, his disbursement request form. Disbursement request, I will give an example. Two brothers owned the property jointly and they took a loan. So check was issued only in the favor of one brother. The other person said, I am not liable, I have not received any money and I have not given you any authority to issue the check only in favor of one person. and he refused. Even when there are vendors, sellers are two. Make sure if there are two sellers, you issue the check as per the authority. So your intention and your disbursement request, your authority to issue check are critical documents which talk about intention. Next, please. This I've explained. All mortgage require registration except deposit of title deeds, which is not mandatory. In certain states, even this has been made mandatory. So you check out in your state whether registration of equitable mortgage is mandatory. Now the question common people ask is that when equitable mortgage, it can be done because registered mortgage is slightly costly on stamp duty, registration charges, advocate charges. So why registered mortgage is required? This question people ask. Now this is required in certain cases. Suppose there is a bungalow and only 50% of the bungalow is being mortgaged and two brothers own it. One brother wants to mortgage, one brother says, I don't want to mortgage my portion. Only 50% you can mortgage. I will come as a consenter, but you can mortgage only 50% of the property. Such cases, registered mortgage is required. Now here I will give you an example. Father owned the property. His name is Mr. Son Kusre. He owned the property. Son wanted to take a loan. So the father said, you take loan only on 50% of the property, not on the balance. So he executed a gift deed for the 50% of the property in favor of son. And the son took a loan on 50% of the property from an affordable housing company. Now the mistake the affordable housing company did was that they did not execute a registered mortgage. Now the case has gone under SARFAESI. Question is that how will they separate the property 50% portion? Because they can sell only 50% of the portion, but how will they sell it? That is not identified. No registered mortgage. Title deed is common. So they have a problem. So when part of the property is mortgaged, it is better to execute a registered mortgage deed and take consent of the balance owner of the property. Fine, you are mortgaging 50%, but the balance, because it will affect the marketability of the property. Okay. Second point is where the title document is lost. Now, in cases where title document is lost, you do not have linked documents, so that affects the chain. In such cases, first you have to take an approval of the credit. If the title document is lost, you have to take approval of the credit. There is a procedure of lost document where you have to give a public notice. You have to file an FIR, credit approval, and then if you consider okay, you execute a registered mortgage, because there's a risk that he is saying title document is lost. It can be mortgage as equitable mortgage with any other bank. So title document lost is a credit risk which the institution has to decide. Where cases where registered mortgage is executed when the loan is repaid, then release deed has to be executed. We have a case in where a builder has developed a layout where registered mortgage was executed in the year 2017. He has repaid the loan. We have a no due certificate, but release deed is not there. We have rejected because if there is a registered mortgage executed and the loan is repaid, the release deed also has to be registered. So the bank asked that you have a no due certificate, why can't you clear it? We said no due certificate can be forged. It can be changed next morning. Again he says, okay, cancel the no due certificate, you give me more loan. So whenever there is a registered mortgage, there has to be a release deed. This is mandatory. Now, another cases where registered mortgage is done is ancestral property. Like I told you, Sanat cases, refugee property cases, so where there is no linked title document, no original title document, only revenue record says Mr. ABC is the owner of the property. And if that is sure link is clear, then we can look in for registered mortgage. Now, certain cases like societies, cooperative housing societies. In 1960s, the cooperative housing societies started for flats started in Mumbai, Maharashtra and Gujarat. Now, earlier these societies used to issue only a share certificate and an allotment letter. Registering the agreement to sale and sale deeds have started in the last 15, 20, 25 years. But earlier it was only share certificate and allotment letter. And those titles are still existing if people have not sold their property. Such cases come for LAP. In such cases, we recommend registered mortgage where there is only a share certificate and an allotment letter. Of course, NOC from society is required, bylaws of society is required. But such cases can be done with registered mortgage. Only share certificate and allotment letter. Other types are, like I gave you example, property partnership is dissolved and individuals have become owner of the property. Company is dissolved, individual have become owner of property. So there would not be title document of specific property which is being mortgaged. That particular case, registered mortgage. Next, please. Registered mortgage is slightly complicated. So you have to attach so many documents. With equitable mortgage, you don't have to attach so many documents. Sanction letter. Then even the mortgage deed can be one-sided also, and financial institution can also go and sign. If somebody is signing on behalf of the bank, then he has to carry an authority. ID card of both the parties. Building plan, revenue record, all these documents have to be attached. You have to pay stamp duty. You have to pay registration charges. Templates are available on website for registered mortgage. Charge. Types of charge. Now, first we have to understand the difference between a mortgage and a charge. You'll ask me, if we are talking about mortgage, then why charge? Remember, all mortgages are charges, but all charges are not mortgages. SARFAESI Act applies to both mortgage and charge. I will repeat. All mortgages are charges, but all charges are not mortgage. I'll give you, there are types of charge. One is first charge. Bank has first charge on the property. In case of default, the bank can acquire the property. The second charge is that two banks have given a loan, Bank A and Bank B. In case of default, first Bank A will have the right and Bank B will have the right later on. Two banks have given loan on the same property. Charge, not mortgage, I'm talking charge. Bank A will have the first right, Bank B will have the second right. The second charge cases, I will give you example in government loan, there's a government employee who has taken a loan from central government. Suppose he has taken 10 lakhs from central government and he wants another 5 lakh rupees. So central government says that you can take 5 lakh from HDFC Bank, but that will be a second charge. Central government will have the first charge on the property. Such cases, top-up cases, are done by certain financial institutions. So that is called second charge. Third is pari passu charge. Pari passu charge means this is done in developer cases. There is a builder who has taken a loan of say 5 crores from Bank A. Then he wants another 3 crores. So Bank A says, fine, there is a value of the property, but our limit is over. We cannot give you more than 5 crores. For 3 crores, you can take from another bank and we will have pari passu charge. I'll explain what a pari passu charge is. So he takes loan from Bank B and there are pari passu agreement executed between Bank A and Bank B. Pari passu means, suppose there is a default. So to the extent of 5 crore, to the percentage of 5 crore, Bank A will have the right and to the percentage of 3 crores of the total amount received, Bank B will have the right. So it is percentage wise. It's not first charge or second charge. So these are the types of charges which are generally done in builder cases or central government employee cases, central government, state government employee cases. But coming back to what is the difference between mortgage and a charge? Mortgage regular, 5 properties, mortgage to you is mortgage. Now charge. Suppose a person has given a property on lease, he has given his flat on a lease rental to Mrs. Pooja Dixit. Okay, he has given a flat on rental lease to Mrs. Pooja Dixit. And then he says that I want a loan on this particular flat. So the bank says, okay, the rent that you will receive from Pooja Dixit will go towards the payment of the EMI. He does not mortgage his property. He does not give the title of what he gives, only the charge to receive rent. He gives only the charge to receive the rent. So the bank has the charge on the property to receive the rent, but not to sell the property. Bank does not have the mortgage of the property. Bank has not taken the title documents of the property. Now what this person does, he takes the title documents and goes to Bank B. Says, I want to mortgage the property. No, the bank which has the charge has the first right. Because that charge is more, because it's first charge, this mortgage becomes subsequent. So such cases should be avoided or done with the credit approval. So you have to understand, in lease rental cases, when there's a charge on rent, mortgage has to be done with a lot of caution. Okay. Now we look at the developer documents, all flat schemes, builders, layouts. Across big cities, we only have builder cases. Small cities, we have combination of cases. So what are the documents of a developer that you need to take? That is title deed of the landowner. We have to trace for last 30 years. Link registered documents, revenue record, development agreement, power of attorney, non-agricultural use permission, town planning approval. These are the builder documents. Of course, it will be a long list and things will be added to it, but these are broad documents. Building plans, building permit. Suppose a flat scheme has 100 flats. How many flats? What is the built-up area? What is the land share? Deed of declaration is applicable in some state. Deed of declaration is a document which gives the details of the scheme. Like Maharashtra, we have the Maharashtra Apartment Ownership Act, which gives deed of declaration how many flats are there in the scheme. So we have to take all these builder documents and make a master file. We can have a complete session on builder master files. Every loan is also a contract. We said there has to be a loan. We said there has to be intention and there has to be deposit of title deeds. Only then your mortgage is valid. So it is important that your loan is also valid. You cannot say, oh, I have the title document, fine. No, your loan has to be valid. And for the loan has to be valid, we have to see the conditions. What are your loan documents? Every document has to be valid. It starts from your application form, sanction letter, acceptance letter, disbursement request form, authority to issue check in favor of, then your loan agreement. Banks also take a promissory note. Now, as I said, your loan agreement is a contract and it has to be a valid contract. If your contract is not valid, your mortgage can be challenged. So smart advocate who knows all this can bring a stay. So make sure that your loan agreement is valid. Check the manner of payment in all the linked sale deeds. And if the payment is duly acknowledged. What is happening now in the recent 2-3 years, the sale deeds have post-dated checks. I had a case of 23 crores where checks of 5 crores were post-dated. Now, if the consideration is not fully paid, the vendor can any time bring a stay. I have not received money, so your mortgage will be affected. So please check in all the linked documents that the payment of consideration is fully paid to the vendor. If any doubt, take bank statement clearances. Especially in project finance cases, we are getting this problem of post-dated checks, consideration not paid. So take care on this. Check manner of payment in all the documents. Now, Title clear receipt. Then you check what documents are to be taken. As per title report, title deeds present owner, original copy, title deeds of link owner as applicable, affidavit, indemnity, NOC, revenue records in the name of present owner, link owner, tax receipt, building plan and permit in case of construction, NA order, layout plan. These are common documents. It may vary from place to place. It may something will be added, but you have to see the list as per advocate's report what documents are to be taken. Disbursement should be done as per authority of the borrower. I give you my example of sale deeds. Do not be in a rush to just do a disbursement online and keep documents OTC pending for 3 months and rent interest being charged to the borrower. There are a lot of problems. They are in such a hurry to do the disbursement. Everything OTC. Everything is OTC. But make sure that you receive those documents. Now in resale cases, check is issued in the name of vendor. So take proper authority. In builder cases, check is issued in the name of builder. So that should be a part of your title report, part of your disbursement request form, that in whose name check is to be issued. In case of power of attorney holder, please. In case of power of attorney holder, if the check is to be issued in the name of power of attorney holder, make sure that he has the right to receive the check as per power of attorney. Mark it. Ask your advocate to mark it and give it to you. Now there are post-disbursement documents. Check the post-disbursement documents and maintain a system for collection of post-disbursement documents, especially like NOC for mortgage from lesser authority in leasehold property cases, balance transfer cases, NOC mortgage, Madam PDD कब आएगा? So that there has to be a system. Otherwise, NOC mortgage is required. Advocate has written. If you do not collect it, then your SARFAESI will not be valid. So it has to be your system to collect the NOC for mortgage. Now vendor balance transfer cases. You are doing a balance transfer cases, you are issuing a check in the name of another bank, then the documents will come. Who will collect it? There are cases when the documents are released by one bank and they never reach the second bank. This is the reason why certain banks have started the vendor document collection procedure by the advocate only, that you collect the documents. So NOC mortgage, vendor document collection, PDD document collection are very important documents which you have to monitor, and you have to have your institution system. Now, no due certificate. Property loan is half marriage. 15 years, 20 years you have to live with an organization. Nowadays we do the BT, but still you are living with the loan for 15 to 20 years. So obtain no due certificate of all the link loans. In case of registered mortgage, make sure that it is removed from the revenue record, proper release deed is executed. Maintain all records of no due certificate. It helps in resale and second loan cases. When there's a resale, these previous loans have a problem. Suppose you want a top-up loan also, so there has to be no due certificate, a second loan. So make sure that the no due certificate is duly received. Next, please.
That's how we ended up, Neelam. And
Yeah.
That's a concluding session. You can conclude and then I'll take it up.
Okay. Now this has been the journey from application form to no due certificate title verification. We have to look at many detailed aspects and we can take it up at appropriate sessions.
underneath the buyers.
And there are case studies on every aspect which we especially builder documents, builder procedures, balance transfer cases. These are the cases we have to go in detail. There are state-wise variations also, and district-wise location understanding we have to do. So this is one cycle which we have done it. You may have other queries also. Kalyan sir will surely have systems and sessions for you. And I hope this has helped you. And we can go in more details with time permits later. But please give your feedback to Kalyan sir, and I'm always available. Thank you very much.